All right, I have 6:30. I'm Mayor Tome here to call to order this meeting of the Columbus Common Council. Today is Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. Again, I will note that we are continuing to integrate the use of video and teleconferencing for our City Council meeting for safety and social distancing purposes. This evening we have Administrator Ellison, Deputy Clerk Jane Foodie here with us in the chambers this evening, and all council members with the exception of Ian Gray, who's on Zoom. And we will have city staff joining us via video conference or teleconference on Zoom. With that, Jane, could you take a roll call for us, please?
Present.
McCabe. Here. Pfeifferle.
Here.
Reed. Here. Ryan. Here. And Tome.
Here. Thank you. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. The next item then is to approve the agenda. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Alder Pfeifferle will make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Ryan, second.
Right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Is there anyone opposed? The agenda is approved. On to correspondence and communications. Again, we are accepting correspondence and communications via video or teleconference. We have the phone number posted on our agendas for the evening. I do not see anyone on Zoom right now. Is there anyone present that wished to make a citizen comment or correspondence or communications? I see none. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the Council and Committee of the Whole minutes for May 5th, 2020, as well as application for operator's license for the term of July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2021. The name of that applicant is Sandy Tipton. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? If there are no questions on the consent agenda, I'll take a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Alder Ryan.
I'll make the second. Alder Pfeifferle.
We have a motion by Ryan, a second Paul Pfeifferle, to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to new business item number 1, which is consider and take action on Resolution 9-20, resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $1,125,000 for the sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2020A of the City of Columbus, Columbia County, Wisconsin, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds. We did get some updated information left at our desks and also emailed to us today with some updated numbers on them, and we have Greg Johnson with us available this evening. Greg, if you don't mind, I'll just turn it over to you, and if you could go through the updates quickly for us, just so everyone's aware.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm just going to share my screen so you can see the report that's before you. So just as a quick recap, last month Common Council had authorized the issuance of these sewer revenue bonds to finance some sewer improvements for the sewer utility, mainly the Huber Screen project. The bonds went through final pricing today. This was a negotiated transaction. The underwriter was Bankers Bank out of Madison in partnership with Farmers Merchants Bank in Columbus. The interest rates on the bonds came in at 1.2% to 2.7% over the 20-year life of the bonds. The total principal and interest is $1,416,971. That is $77,075 less than the estimate that we have presented to the Common Council last month. So good news in that regard that interest rates came out more favorable. Included after the executive summary is just the bid tabulation that summarized the interest rates by maturity from 2021 through 2040. So these are fixed. Here today on the day of sale, these bonds are callable in 2027, so they can be either prepaid or refinanced as that call date approaches. On table 1 is the sources and uses for the bond issue. In the left column under estimate is the estimate that was presented last month, and then the final is in the column to the right. Really the project amount remains the same. Most of the cost of issuance expenses were identical or slightly less than what was estimated, but we were able to reduce the par amount of the bond issue down to $1,125,000. So that's the amount that's reflected in the updated resolution that was provided to you today with the sale results from this morning. So you still have the same amount for projects, but have to issue less bonds to pay for them, which is a good outcome as well. On table 2 is just the debt service payments over the 20-year life of the bond issue. All of this will be repaid by revenues of the sewer utility. Again, you'll see the total estimated debt service was about $1,494,000. Again, that's $77,000. The actual debt service is less than that estimate that we presented last month. And then we always look at the coverage when you pledge any non-levy revenue source to repay debt, such as the sewer revenues. You need to be able to demonstrate that the net revenues of the sewer utility, once you pay your operational expenses, are at least 1.25 times higher than the debt service payments. So you'll see your coverage ratio is really in the mid 1.6 range, which is strong coverage. And then we've also included a coverage calculation for all of your debt, because some of the GO debt is paid by the sewer utility as well, but there's no legal coverage threshold that has to be met, but your coverage is strong for the GO debt as well. So in summary, good results in terms of the bond sale today, coming in again about $77,000 less than estimated. So interest rates were a little more favorable than what we had projected a month ago. So the action before you this evening is to consider the resolution that's on your agenda. As was noted, the new par amount is $1,125,000. And you'll receive the funds if you approve the sale on the 11th of June. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the sale.
Are there any questions for Greg Johnson while we have him? I see no questions, Greg. Thank you so much for the summary and for the good news.
You're welcome, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, with that, look for someone to make a motion to approve Resolution 9-20 for the authorization of the issuance and the sale of $1.125 million for the sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2020A.
I'll make a motion on the resolution 9-20 for the reasons just read. I'm sorry, for the amount just read.
McCabe seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 9-20 for the issuance, authorization, and the sale of $1,125,000 for the sewer system revenue bond, Series 2020A of the City of Columbus, Columbia County, Wisconsin, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could you please take a roll call on that, Jane?
Ryan,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Piperone,
Aye.
Reed. Aye.
All right, thank you, Jane. Motion passes. We'll move on to new business item number 2. Thanks again, Greg.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll move on to new business number 2. Consider and take action on Resolution 8-20, a resolution providing for the rebate of certain alcohol license fees, and amending certain policies for the approval of alcohol licenses during the 2020 through 2021 licensing period. This was discussed at the Committee of the Whole. I believe the intent was to have a resolution to allow for specific rebates for the Class B license holders that were not able to have on-site sales during the I guess, safer at home restrictions for those license holders. to include some of the language in the resolution was that we would not want to see establishments submitting a renewal application that would be expanding on its premises description as currently permitted by its existing license on file with the city, and that we would have 60 days to do the required inspections by the fire department, police department, and building inspector as part of the license renewal process. I think that about covers it. Were there any questions on the resolution 8-20 from anyone? I see no questions. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 8-20.
Alder Pifron will make a motion to approve resolution 8-20.
Reed seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 8-20, resolution providing for the rebate of certain alcohol license fees and amending certain policies for the approval of alcohol licenses during the 2020 through 2021 license period. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion on the motion, could you please take a roll call for us, Jane?
Pepperoni,
Here.
Reed. McCabe. Ryan.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 3 then. Item number 3 is a short list of mayoral appointments of citizens to boards, committees, and commissions for 2020. There are 6 names listed on this list. All of them are reappointments to the same board, just extending their terms for another full term, with the exception of City Administrator Kyle Ellefson, whom I'm appointing to the Joint Board of Review as the city representative. Are there any questions on the list of appointments that's been submitted? Okay, yes, and just to note, this was not included in the packet, the public packet. It was submitted to council members on Friday for pickup. If you didn't get it by then, you should have a list with you this evening, so thank you for pointing that out. Does everyone have a copy of that? I can read the names. On the list, I have submitted Nora View, who's currently on the library, and I'd be reappointing for additional term expiring in 2023. Jim Shibley is well on the library board, being reappointed for an additional term expiring in 2023. Kyle Ellefson, Joint Board of Review City Representative. That appointment does not have a specific term. I guess it would be the life of the TIFs that we have here in Columbus, or until Kyle is no longer our city administrator. So Brad Baston's being reappointed to the Plan Commission for an additional term expiring in 2023. Teresa Sumnick being reappointed to the Police and Fire Commission for an additional term expiring in 2025. And Mike Myers being reappointed to the CDA for an additional term expiring in 2024. Any questions on the appointments? If there are no questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve the mayoral appointments as submitted.
McCabe makes a motion to approve the mayoral appointments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the mayoral appointments to boards, committees, and commissions as submitted and as read. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 4 then. Consider and take action on the donation from the Lions Club of a Lion Park Bench in Meister Park. This was reviewed at the last committee of the whole. This will be a companion to the drinking fountain that was installed at Meister Park last year, another donation by the Lions Club. I think Amy Jo presented this information. Didn't seem like there was a lot of questions other than what it was made out of, and I don't see a place where we can have a hornet's nest in its mouth like the bubbler, but I think this will be a nice addition to the park, and thank the Lions Club for their generous donation again. Are there any questions on item number 4? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the donation from the Lions Club of a Lion Park Bench for Meister Park.
Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the Lions Club donation of a Lions bench for Meister Park.
Reed seconds.
We have a motion from Ryan and a second from Reed to accept the donation from the Lions Club. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 4, which is a companion to item number 5. Consider and take action on the donation from Lions Club for planters in Meister Park. My understanding is that they wanted to put some planters in the park, that they would be taking the responsibility for maintaining those planters, and will remove the planters in the fall as needed. So another donation from the Lions Club. Are there any questions on item number 5? Amy Jo is available on the phone if so. I see no questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve another donation from the Lions Club for the planters in Meister Park.
Okay, motions to approve the planters from the Lions Club in Meister Park.
Ryan, second.
All right, we have a motion from McCabe, a second from Ryan to approve the donation from the Lions Club for planters in Meister Park. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thanks again to the Lions Club for their donation of the planters in Meister Park. Number 6, consider and take action on DOT safety traffic grant from the police department. This was presented at the last committee of the whole by Chief Dennis Meister. He is available on the phone if there are any last minute questions. They did receive a $4,000 grant that they wish to use to replace 2 aging radar units for their squads. They'd be replacing those 2 units, and if there is any extra expense for those units, that they would take that expense out of an existing line item. So essentially there would be no additional cost to the city. If there are any questions, Dennis is available. Are there any questions? I see none. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dennis. Chief Weiner. Sorry. I apologize.
That's all right. I caught it, but it's okay.
I apologize. All right. If there are no questions, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the DOT traffic safety grant for the police department in the amount of $4,000.
Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the traffic safety grant by the DOT to the Columbus Police Department in the amount of $4,000.
I'll second. Alder Pipeline.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the DOT traffic safety grant in the amount of $4,000 for the police department. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. I apologize again, Chief Dennis Weiner.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item number 7, then consider and take action on the Woods Development Letter of Credit. I am going to turn this over quickly to, I'm not sure if, do you have the updates on this, Kyle, or is this Attorney Johnson?
I think between Attorney Johnson and Zach actually has kind of an updated bullet checklist of what needs to be done in our current status.
Okay. I did see.
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I did notify the developer out here last month, late April, regarding what needed to be followed up with to kind of finish up this work here, and asked him to notify me when that work was completed so we could kind of give them their final approval on that. I was out there today. There are still a few items that need to be wrapped up, and the developer is aware he has until the end of the day on May 28th to complete that work so that we do have time to pull the letter of credit on Monday, June 1st if needed.
All right, thank you for the update, Zach. So there is work that still needs to be completed as outlined in here, the restoration along Redbud Trail sidewalks, new erosion control and inlet protection, and the final sweep of the road when restoration is complete. I believe the recommendation still stands that the council pull the letter of credit, that the work is not completed. Attorney Johnson, do you have any recommendation on the appropriate motion to do so?
Yes, thank you. Last time we went through this little exercise, the council approved the pulling of the letter of credit, and at the last minute, we ended up negotiating an extension and a new letter of credit. So I would request that the council motion this time be to authorize staff to either pull the letter of credit on June 1 or to negotiate an extension for the unfinished items for another 60 days, just so that we have the choice to do this both ways. We would certainly prefer to be done with this on June 1st, but the history of this developer tells me it's going to come right down to the wire.
All right, thank you, Attorney Johnson. Are there any questions from the council on this item? Any updates? Anyone have
Was there anything else completed that hadn't been completed since the last time we were updated? I guess that's a question for Zach.
Dirt off from the road off to the edge of the road, so you just need to put black dirt in along the road edge there, so there's not a big 3-inch gap. And then the same thing on the sidewalks were replaced. They just need to have some of the dirt feathered back and grass seed laid down in all those locations. So fingers crossed it's something that can get wrapped up here the next week.
Thanks, Zach.
all right, what is the will of the council?
I'm fine with having, I guess, 60 days.
To authorize staff to
To
either,
authorize staff, sorry, yeah.
to pull the letter of credit on June 1st or negotiate terms for an additional 60 days beyond that,
An additional 60 days
beyond June 1. I
beyond
think
June
is-
1. Authorizing staff to negotiate that if necessary.
Does that mean that you do not want to pull the letter of credit on June 1? I guess I'm asking, I'd have to refer to Paul Johnson to ask what the mechanism do we need to.
Mayor, what I would foresee here is, well, what happened last time is that we started the process of pulling the letter of credit, and the lender at Farmers and Merchants Bank then put together the information that we needed, if I remember this right, put the information together that we needed along with Jason Letha to say, here's the amount of work that still needs to be done, here's the value of that work, and then they presented us with a new letter of credit that they signed and we approved, probably the day before the other one was going to be pulled. So if this comes down to the end, we'll notify the bank that we intend to pull the letter of credit on the 1st, and then one of two things will happen. Either A, they'll get out and do the work, which would be preferable, or B, they will contact us and we'll work up a number that will cover the remaining work that Zach just alluded to, and then they'll give us another letter of credit for probably $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to cover that work, and that's how this will go forward. There's no reason this can't get done by June 1st, but at the same time, pulling a letter of credit is not a preferred way to wrap this up, but if we have to, we will.
Attorney Johnson, while I have you, just for clarification for maybe some of the newer council members, the letter of credit is somewhat designed for the developer to make sure that they fulfill the requirements, and this punch list are the last few remaining items on this developer's list. So since the letter of credit is already due to expire on June 1st, if this is all satisfied, that letter of credit should just go away, period, correct? Because it's been extended already?
That is correct. We'll notify the bank that it can be canceled, and that will be the end of it.
Okay. Let's see. So, Trina, I think you were up first. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, I was just going to say I didn't want to extend the letter of credit for 2 months. That would bring us into August, and we would be running a little short on the planting season at that point. I just don't want to give that kind of time. It's perfect for putting in the seeds and whatnot now.
And I believe we have extended this letter of credit several times in the past. Is that correct, Paul Johnson?
That is correct, and it's usually for 6 months at a crack. And to Trina's comment, I would be very happy with a 30-day extension. I don't have a specific date in mind, just something to give them a little extra time.
McCabe?
I just had a question, but the 30 days sounds better to me, but if the letter of credit gets pulled, or it then falls to the responsibility of the city to do this work, or what, I guess.
Correct, it's almost kind of like an escrow account or a reserve in that they don't
So if
finish
they
the
don't
work.
finish it,
We finish it, and then the funds come out of the letter of credit, so we can actually close the letter of credit, and then, because this is credit that the developer has to hold to completion, so.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Ian, I saw your light on before, I apologize. Did you have any comment?
I was basically going to say the exact same thing that between Trina and Attorney Johnson came up. I would say we should authorize to pull the letter of credit and extend for no more than 30 days at most. It's been extended multiple times and they don't need 30 days to do the work that needs to be done.
It's a one-day project, I would think.
Exactly.
What it sounds like. I think that the mechanism of pulling the letter of credit is what's going to inspire them to satisfy the punch list. So we don't necessarily want to do the work, but it's that mechanism that will inspire them to complete the work. So, are there any further questions for Zach or Attorney Johnson or Administrator Ellison on the issue? All right. Didn't anyone care to put together a motion? Ian, if you want to make a motion, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with your comment there.
Alder Gray will make a motion to authorize staff to either pull the letter of credit for the Woods Development letter of credit or extend for a period of no greater than 30 days.
Right. That suffices. Thank you, Ian.
Alder Pipefone, I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion from Alder Gray and a second from Pifferone to authorize staff to pull a letter of credit on June 1st or negotiate terms for an additional 30 days to complete this project. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 8 then. Consider and take action on the May Ward Fund application for the Downtown Planters. This was presented by Matt Schreiber at the last Committee of the Whole meeting for a review. It looks like there's an expense of approximately $500 to get the planters ready and up this year for downtown. It looks like Matt maybe updated some of the expense on the back page of his submission behind the photos. I think he was estimating approximately $500, but got some more exact prices on here. I think it would be wise to probably approve up to or not to exceed $500, and it seems like Matt can probably accomplish
Yeah, that is correct, Mayor Tome.
Okay.
I expect to get a final invoice, and I've the client or the vendor I've been working with said it will not exceed $500 is what the preliminary estimate that they gave me. I think it's actually going to come in considerably under that. So, but yeah, I submitted the current estimate that I have received from Nora. So,
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are there any additional questions from council for Matt while he's on? Trina?
I mean, I know there was a citizen comment question wondering at what amount do we normally put items out for bid. I really don't think we could have put this out for bid and had it be affordable at a regular florist. I mean, I really think we pretty much had to find an almost non-professional service or person.
mm-hmm. I would just share that I followed our city policies, and quite frankly, this was almost the same way we did it last year, except last year we had the FFA that we partnered with. This year we found a vendor that we could work with, and I just went ahead and did it. So I was well within the policy that is laid out. So just wanted to share that.
Yep, Matt is correct. Everything was done within policy. I think it was probably more of a, since Matt knew we weren't going to have the FFA to work with this year, that we needed to find someone that could help us out. And for an item that's less than $500, there's no requirement to receive multiple bids. So I think Matt just wanted to find someone that was qualified that could duplicate what we had last year. And it seems like we have that. So are there any more questions?
Oh, I have one more.
Oh, go ahead, Trina.
I'm sorry. Oh, so not a question, but a comment. I feel so much better seeing the price list and the listing of the different plants. Last week, we were hearing that there were just going to be petunias, and that sounded so sad. But now seeing that it's going to be a mixture of 5 different kinds of flowers and vines, I think they're going to be some beautiful baskets.
I agree. McCabe?
Yeah, I just had a question about the bidding policy, just because I'm not familiar. So is it anything above $500 gets?
I'll let Kyle explain. Okay.
So once you get above 500, what we ask is of the department heads to get multiple quotes or bids. It's not an official going out to bid. We don't publish it. We don't, post it publicly. We just have them contact people or outlets that they know would sell that. Once it gets over $1,000, those same requirements exist, except for my approval is also needed. And then above 10,000, the council gets involved, and depending on what type of expenditure it is, it can involve official bidding, and it can be, depending again on the specifics, either class 1 or class 2, where you have to publish multiple times. At 500 and under, it's much more relaxed, and it's certainly statutorily by the state regulations. They don't even mention really minor expenses like this. And again, I think Matt was trying to make this work in a time when the FFA is not available to do what they normally would do, and our anticipation is we go right back to the FFA in the future. So
Correct. Yep. I think the statutory requirements it's a fairly large threshold, and that would be for like new construction. I mean, you can still do maintenance project at a fairly high level of expense without having to go through that statutory requirement. So, yeah, good question though. All right, unless there's any further questions for Matt or any clarification needed, I'd say it would probably be a good idea to take action to approve the May Ward Fund application for the downtown planters, and I would say not to exceed $500 would be a fair motion.
Read motions to accept application for downtown planters not to exceed $500 from the May Ward Fund.
Ryan, second.
We have a motion from Reed, Ryan, second. Motion to approve not to exceed $500 for the downtown planters from the May Ward Fund. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, could we please take a roll call on that, Jane?
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Piperone,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. All right, item number 9, consider and take action on claims in the amount of $209,037.69. Are there any questions on the city claims as submitted? I see no questions. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the city claims in the amount read.
Alder Piperone will make a motion to approve the claims of the amount read.
McCabe seconds.
We have a motion from Piperone and a second by McCabe to approve the city claims in the amount of $209,037.69. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could you please take a roll call for us, Jane?
McCabe. Piperone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
and Gray.
Aye.
All right, the claims have been approved. Thank you. We'll move on to report of city officers then. I'll let you go right ahead, Administrator Olson.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just 2 items I wanted to touch on. One, very quickly, our finance director recruitment is still ongoing. I do want to point out that to date, we only have 2 applicants for that position. We have that position closing on May 27th. So I'm hopeful that in the next week or so, we get several more qualified applicants. I will be spending some time this week making sure that we're reaching out to people that have experience in government accounting and in the treasurer or finance director realm. So ideally, we'll have several candidates to choose from, and worst case scenario is we might have to extend it for a short amount of time to try to encourage more people. But the goal is that on May 27th, we just have a pool of candidates to choose from. So then the other thing is it's been taking up a lot of our time as department heads and in the administration. Obviously, the Safer at Home order was almost entirely overturned last week. And the city's emergency order also will naturally expire unless it's extended sometime this weekend. So we have been working on developing plans to kind of come back to somewhat more of a normal status. So if you've seen the information we put out, City Hall, Public Works, other places where we normally receive the public and do business with the public, our goal is to reopen to normal business next Tuesday, the 26th. And when I say normal, that there will be free access to the building. What we're going to be doing is encouraging social distancing, putting markers on the floor, things like that, to try to ensure that we can do it as safely as possible. Additionally, we're going to be providing PPE for staff to make sure that we're providing a safe workplace and making people that work for us comfortable coming to work. So those are the plans that we have in City Hall. We have other places where we operate, but it's not as freely accessible, like the pool and the senior center. They're public buildings, but they're not just free access. They're a little bit more controlled. And so we're right now working on developing the plans on how we can safely reopen and what the procedures might have to be put in to make sure we can do it safely. And I anticipate next meeting that we have, this will be a discussion where we can provide the information on what the plan is, maybe the references on how we got to it. I know we're relying heavily on regional and national organizations who have kind of developed standards across the board that we can try to follow. Parks and playgrounds are, the parks have always remained open. The playgrounds are open now as well. Those are areas that are very difficult to control access to because they're out in the open. And I think the public generally recognizes that those are not areas that are cleaned and sanitized on a regular basis anyways. So they are open. We're still encouraging the CDC guidelines, social distancing, things like that. But the Columbia County Health Department issued similar guidance, basically reverting to the CDC guidelines on social distancing. So that's the position we're taking there. And then recreation programming, we're still kind of evaluating what activities can go on and what can't. But there will be some changes coming next week, and then I anticipate, depending on how the circumstances change, we're going to be changing either to get less restrictive or more restrictive depending on what the conditions on the ground are. One thing I want to note is that as we start evaluating as staff some of the applications that end up coming before the council for larger events, street closings, large public gatherings, temporary picnic licenses for events, for the larger events, and I'm just kind of ballparking, over 100 people. I'm going to start asking for more information from those applicants so that the department heads can evaluate it regarding how they're going to keep the attendees of that public event safe and what measures they're going to put in place. I think it's good for the department heads to be aware of that so that they have full information when they make a decision or recommendation. And then additionally, the committee of the whole and council need that information so they can fully evaluate it. So you will see that on future submissions that you're potentially evaluating. There will be additional information that we haven't normally asked, but this is an unusual situation. So the last thing I'll mention is that the league did issue an opinion today about the ability of local communities to issue their own emergency orders and put more of those safer at home restrictions back in. And they did reaffirm that we absolutely have the ability to do that and to use emergency orders to protect the public health and welfare. But then they struck a different tone and said, but you have to be very, very cautious and make sure that your restrictions should be narrowly tailored and address the specific circumstances in the community, which would be detailed in your emergency order. So if we if there was a desire to do an emergency order here and put restrictions in place, it would have to reflect some circumstance that we had in front of us. And it would be the sort of thing that if it was specific to Columbus, it wouldn't necessarily work 2 counties over. It would be that specific. So I just throw that out there in case there is the desire to research any additional actions, even proactively in the event things change circumstantially. So that's what I have.
Instantly, so thanks again, Kyle. I had a few things, even though we've been dealing with COVID and elections, we do still have a census happening this year. I just wanted to share the report on self-response rates. As of yesterday, nationwide, we've had an average of 59.6% self-response rate. The state of Wisconsin is at 67%. Columbia County is at 70.6%. And the city of Columbus is at 76.2 self-response rate. So I think that's pretty good. I'm not sure of the exact logistics of the Census Bureau, but I believe they're encouraging everybody to do the self-response, and then they reach into other modes of contact to get the highest response rates that they possibly can. So good job, Columbus. And if you haven't taken your census yet, I would urge you to do so. It literally takes just a few minutes online. So I also wanted to thank the Columbus Water and Light Utility for working with the Columbus School District to help advise and allow for them to hang the senior graduate banners on the city utility poles. If you've driven around town, you've seen those. Given the situation this year, it's unfortunate that the senior graduating class doesn't have that opportunity to celebrate their accomplishments with the traditional ceremony that we were all able to enjoy at our graduation. So just thanks to them and the rest of the community for showing support in so many creative ways this year for the graduating class of 2020 Columbus Cardinals, and congratulations goes out to all the graduates. We did receive some really good news last week. There was a press release I think some people have seen, but I received notification on May 8th from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation that the City of Columbus has been awarded funding for the local street project on Hibbard Street from the 2020-2021 Municipal Street Improvement Discretionary Program. It's MSID, which is a component of the Local Roads Improvement Program known as LRIP, with a reimbursement program of the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. This program assists local units of government in improving deteriorating county highways, town roads, and municipal streets under the authority of the local unit of government by paying up to 50% of the total eligible project costs, with the balance matched by the local unit of government. Our project was one of 20 MSID projects selected in Wisconsin for funding in the biennium budget for that program. The total cost of the project, including utilities, is estimated at approximately $1.9 million. Wisconsin DOT will reimburse the City of Columbus for the Hibbard Street project up to a limit of $450,000. As a part of the requirement of receiving this grant, the City Council will be reviewing a draft state municipal agreement at the following Committee of the Whole meeting. To kind of put that in perspective, I guess in my time in city government, we've operated under the guidance or recommendation that we try to expend about $500,000 per year on an average for street reconstruction in the city. So when you look at a number like $450,000, it may not be half of the project, but it puts us almost a year ahead financially, due to that grant. So that's tremendous news for the city, and it's definitely going to help out with the Hibbard Street project. So it's great to get news like that from the state, and we appreciate that additional funding. Again, reminding everyone that the District 3 Alderman, there's still a vacancy that remains open. People can submit letters of interest through Friday, May 29th, if I'm correct there, and those letters of interest should be submitted to the city clerk, Pat Gable. Also, I haven't updated citizen appointments to city boards, committees, and commissions. I have a list of vacancies that I will share with our media coordinator to post on the city website. Just quickly, we have a vacancy on the Board of Review. Very exciting board. They meet once per year. Again, it's a very specific interest, as many of these boards, committees, or commissions are. The Columbus Area Aquatic Center has a vacancy. The Columbus Cable Commission has 2 vacancies currently. The Columbus Development Authority currently has 3 vacancies. The Joint Review Board has 1 community member at large available, and that appointment is confirmed by the Joint Review Board itself, but I'd still like to find someone that they can consider for appointment there. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has a vacancy. Plan Commission has a vacancy. Senior Citizens Advisory Board has a vacancy. Tourism Commission has a vacancy, and the Zoning Board of Appeals has a vacancy. So if you have any questions or want additional information on what these specific boards do, Lisa's been working on updating information on the city website. So when you go in and look, you can click on it, and it will take you to a short description explaining what each board does. If you'd like additional information, I'm happy to speak to you about that. I know when I went through this process last year, I did find people that were newer to the community that wanted to be engaged and involved, and they've done a phenomenal job, I think, of participating with those boards. So looking forward to hearing from residents that want to be engaged in their community and help out with some of these volunteer efforts. That's all I had. All right, I'll take a motion. Oh, Trina, go ahead.
I was in attendance at the library board the library board meeting this evening, and so they had a small update that the library does plan to open May 26th with regular hours. Those that are interested in curbside pickup may still call ahead if they feel more comfortable having the books delivered. So right now, the date is set for May 26th for people to be able to enter the library. Meeting rooms still aren't available. All summer programming is planned to be virtual until further notice. But that's where it stands right now.
Okay, thanks for that update, Trina. Is there anything else anyone else had that they wanted to share? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Alder Pipeline will make a motion to adjourn.
Ryan, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We stand adjourned for a few minutes. We'll take a short break and return with the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you.
Oh, the parks you're talking? Yeah, I can go through that if you want. It doesn't. No, I put the memo together, so I can go through it. I mean, it's pretty. There's really not much. I mean, yeah, that's fine.
Good evening. This is the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting, Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. The time is now 7:25 p.m. Jane, would you please take the roll?
Gray,
Present.
McCabe. Here. Piper,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
and Ryan,
Here.
and Tom.
Here.
This meeting has been noticed with state statutes and local ordinances. With that, I can take a motion to approve the agenda if there is no alterations.
Alder Piper will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, seconds.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Citizen comments. So due to the COVID-19 health crisis, we are taking citizen comments via Zoom or phone call. We have the phone number posted on our agenda this evening. I don't see anybody signed up for citizen comment tonight, but anybody want to make a comment or citizen comment tonight? Seeing none. So I can move on to number 5, department reports. With us tonight in our packet, we have the police report from April of 2020, the Department of Public Works report from April of 2020, and the fire department report from April of 2020. Were there any questions or comments or concerns from council about the department reports? Seeing none. Move on to number 6. Consider and discuss address update for the aquatic center. So, yeah, we have Amy Jo here. It's like, she's got a recommendation of an address, of suggested address of 250 Folsom, to be used for the CAAC. Amy Jo is just, Amy, can you hear me? She's muted.
Really had.
Hi, Amy.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was muted.
Oh.
Basically, we would like to have the aquatic center have its own address so that it has its own identity, and it's not within Fireman's Park. The entire Fireman's Park complex is 1049 Park Avenue, and the pool is within that address. So we think having 250 Folsom would kind of make things a little bit easier.
Trina?
Oh, I'm very much in favor of giving the aquatic center its own address. The first time I tried to find the pool, it took me about a half hour of driving around and around because it just was not in Fireman's Park. I tried really hard. And then I had to ask the hardware store for directions. So I think this would make things a lot less confusing for newcomers to actually locate the aquatic center.
I agree. That's exactly one of the reasons why we're looking at doing this. Any other questions?
Mayor Tome?
I like the idea of putting this on as a Folsom Street extension. It's just more clear. My first question, I guess, is if we move this forward, what do we need to do? Do we need to have a resolution passed, or how do we actually create an address?
So I think it's something that can happen internally. I think because it's here for discussion, I think we'd like the formal recommendation approved. just to make sure that everyone's comfortable with that and it makes sense. But then I believe it's much like an internal process where the clerk assigns an address to it and makes it official. And so that happens for houses and businesses all the time. But being a public building and one that's gone for so long without its own address, this is sort of a unique situation.
Okay, so if we move it forward, then we can basically just make a motion to create the address of 250 Folsom for the CEAC, and then you can take care of it internally. Okay, great.
Okay, any other questions? Paul Piperone?
Alder Piperone here. I'm just questioning, is there anything we have to do with the United States Post Office to, are there any procedures that we have to follow for the, actual physical changing of the, numbers? Does it would affect the mail route? How does one go about that?
So it's similar to when you build a house. There's a format that we can work with the post office to notify them that there is a new address point, and then kind of explain to them, show them a map of where it is, and then they somehow build it into their system, I believe. But again, that's much more on the internal side that we will just take care of once it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy Jo. So
Let's move this forward to the next regular meeting. I have no problem with that.
seems like we have consensus here to move this forward. Thank you, Amy Jo.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 7. Just consider and discuss naming of the recreation area on River Road. Matt Schreiber is going to head this off for us. We had several suggestions for the naming of this particular park, and then we all sort of voted on our top 5, and we have the top 5, I guess, results in no specific order in the packet tonight. So, but Matt, if you want to give us a...
Sure. After the last meeting, each council member was asked to give their top 5 ranked in order to the city administrator, and basically we picked the top 5 based on the rank and then also the number of times they appeared. And the list in your packet is the top 5 in alphabetical order. And those are the items for your discussion. The other item that I wanted to update, I know it's not on the agenda, but it's related to this, was just about the grass. I did get a clarification that the switchgrass was recommended to them by the DNR. So when we bring to the site plan next meeting, keep that in mind. But these are the top 5. I guess tonight it would be ideal if we could pick one and approve it at the next meeting, and we go from there. Also, on related note, I did receive an email from the Eagle Scout who is looking to do his project at the site. So I think the timing would be perfect if we had a name for him so he can complete his design and install a sign down there at the park to be named. So with that, any questions?
Trina?
I did have, I know, I'm still on the switchgrass. I understand the DNR's recommendation for it, that it's fairly inexpensive. You can buy large amounts pretty cheaply. I'm just still concerned with the height and how large of an area. I'm assuming that both the DNR and most of the farmers using it aren't really concerned about the public and being able to have a straight line view. I would just like to see if there's any way to consult a more arboretum type of place to see if they would have an alternate suggestion, just for a large area.
For the next meeting, I would propose that I'll follow up with Winfield and get the other grasses that were recommended by DNR, and so council knows what those grasses would entail.
Thank you. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just know that if you're from a certain type of viewpoint, you might not be able to think about how it's going to be used in a totally different setting, that's all. So thank you.
All right. Any comments on the names that we have here?
Yeah, again.
Trina?
I guess I was wondering if we might be able to do combinations. I know that it is going to be a volunteer focused park, and that's going to be a very important aspect of it. I'm wondering if we might consider having volunteer park being like a subword under the sign, and one of the other suggestions is more of the name parts, and volunteer park as a describer. Possibly.
Thoughts?
Alder Piper, I like that.
Yeah, I would be okay with that myself too. That was my only issue with like some of the names before, with like volunteer park or discovery volunteer, blah, blah. And they seemed more like a descriptor than a name to me. So, I mean, something like Nina Volunteer Park or River Run Volunteer Park, Butterfly Trails Volunteer Park, any of those would make sense to me.
It does sound nice to me as well.
Yay.
Yeah. I guess I hope that we can choose it and decide. I'm going to go ahead and share my top two that I think, with Trina's suggestion. I don't mind that volunteer park being more descriptive. I guess I worry about the people who submitted these names, and I didn't mean for it to be this, or I didn't mean for it to be that, but I think volunteer park kind of encompasses what the park is, and I think that the name being separate from that might be okay. It seems some of us have that same agreement. I haven't heard from all of council, but my favorite, I guess my top two then would be, I do like River Run and I do like Discovery. My question is, like, if you Discovery Park, you're not going to say Discovery Park Volunteer Park, in which you, so it would be Discovery Volunteer Park. I guess if we're going the route of volunteer park, I would prefer the Butterfly Trails over Discovery, but Butterfly Trails Volunteer Park or River Run Volunteer Park.
Alder Piper here, I would echo those same sentiments. Butterfly Trails or River Run Volunteer Park.
Reed also likes those two best.
Mayor Tome?
I like both of them, and I guess I'll jump on the Butterfly Trails only because the Odd Fellows kind of brought the volunteer effort forward for the butterfly thing, and I think it's appropriate that reflects that was the inception of the area and that it's been done by volunteers. So I like Butterfly Trails Volunteer Park.
I'm gonna agree with the Butterfly Trails Volunteer Park myself.
Yep. It definitely seems close to a consensus, though. Is everybody okay moving that Butterfly Trails Volunteer Park, moving that forward then to the next regular meeting? I'm seeing a lot of head nods. Ian? Nod there. Okay. All right. Got consensus. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Could have been. Okay. Moving on, I guess we're going to go to number 8, consider and discuss financing options for the Hibbert Street reconstruction project. So we have information from Ellers in our packet tonight, and City Administrator Kyle is going to walk us through that information.
All right, so just to kind of recap the process, we looked at several options, 20-year bonds, general obligation bonds, 10-year general obligation notes, the state trust fund loan, and also bank loans. That's, kind of encompasses most of our borrowing options. Early on, the general obligation bonds and notes really rose to the top, I think, due to the interest rates. We're in a pretty favorable environment yet. And so when you look at total loan cost or borrowing cost, the bonds and the notes stood out as being the cheaper of the options with better rates. And traditionally, I think the city has done 20-year bonds. I think that's more of the standard that we've done. But this time, I think a combination of receiving the LRIP grant that we'll talk about next, and just some favorable financial positioning. What staff are recommending right now is that we go with the 10-year general obligation notes. The projections that we have for the debt service between the two options of the 20-year bonds and the 10-year notes, if we utilize the notes, we'll save about $180,000 in interest payments over the life of the borrowing. And so when you compare the bonds being $180,000 more, and with what the mayor had just mentioned in the last meeting about how $450,000 is a significant amount of money, you combine it with the savings that we're going to be realizing in this, and that is more than 1 year's road improvement budget. So, I think it's a great opportunity to lock in some cost savings, and it sort of reflects our strong financial position that we're in, and I think where we hope to move more in the future as we try to shore everything up and put a lot of the capital improvements into plans and keep moving. So essentially, we're recommending the notes, and that is, that would be table 2, and page 2 of the Ellers handout. And they use projections on interest rates, but as you heard tonight in the first meeting, interest rates have been favorable, so we would hope that this would even go down more. The other thing I'll point out is that we still will need to look at the total bid package for the project when it's awarded, and see if there's any areas that we might be concerned about potential overages and overruns, and that we would build in a little contingency of a couple percentage points just to make sure we don't run short if they run into a soft spot and need more breaker run or something like that. So if there's consensus with the committee of the whole, we would begin working with Ellers and start the process of issuing those general obligation notes and determining those final amounts, and get everything more formalized and ready to come for official approval at the committee of the whole, and move through a process with the notes similar to what we just finished tonight.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions about the information provided by Ellers this evening? Mayor Tom?
I'll say it's almost like a fantasy to be able to have a project this large, have a grant, and to complete a project on a 10-year note. In my time here, we've never done a road project with a 10-year note. We've done it with 20-year bonding. So when you take into consideration the amount of work that's getting done in 1 year, I couldn't have imagined this 5 years ago. I couldn't. When we talked about the Hibbert Street project a couple of years ago, they are actually talking about splitting that project into 2 separate phases, because we didn't know that we could complete it in 1 year. To be able to get that amount of reconstruction done in the community on a 10-year note with a grant is just, like I said, it's like a fantasy. So I'm very happy with this news, and with the low rates right now, I think even these projections could be a little bit above. But I agree with Kyle. We usually build in like a 10% contingency just in case something happens during the project. But I think this is just good news all around.
Any other questions or comments from anybody? So I'm seeing then consensus then to go ahead with the recommendation of the 10-year note, to move that forward, and the city staff start working with Ellers on that. Okay, then, thank you, council. Move ahead to Number 9, which is consider and discuss draft state municipal agreement. So tonight in your packet, I think, Kyle, you're going to be heading us off as well. This is the, sorry. Kyle, you can begin.
All right. So this is something we've been waiting for a while. It's basically the agreement related to the LRIP grant, and it lays out, who's responsible for what the program guidelines are, and establishes, the responsibilities of each of us so that there's no disagreement later on, halfway through a road project, though we thought you were covering it or they thought we were covering it. The key point here is that the state municipal agreement needs to be agreed to prior to awarding the construction bid. And so that's something that that's why we've been waiting on this for so long. I mean, I probably should have started with what great news it is that we have $450,000 in a grant. That's just great news anytime you have that. But particularly in the infrastructure that we've been trying to address over the years. So just a little background, because I think the agreement has been reviewed by our city engineer, and he didn't have any comments today, but he was going to be looking further into it. And Paul Johnson had to step away temporarily to attend a closed session from another community, and hopefully he'll be back shortly, but I did not hear any concerns from him. And I think this is one of those agreements that we've had a lot of experience with. I know the mayor had mentioned to me that there was multiple SMAs and amendments over several of these large state road projects that run through the city. But when we initially pursued that LRIP grant, I think we were looking mid-March is when we were expecting to hear the results of that. And so we kind of built our timing of our construction awards around that. And, the state took much longer than we expected. Obviously they've been dealing with COVID-19 issues, potentially budget issues, staffing restrictions, and so I think that slowed everything down and just made it a longer process. So with that good news of the money coming our way, unfortunately the grant delays at the state have delayed the awarding of the bids and starting of the project. And what we've been doing is communicating with the apparent low bidder, and they're willing to accept an extended bid acceptance date. And I actually got their signed letter today indicating their willingness to still honor their bids even after the initial date that we had proposed in our bid documents, which were already longer than normal. So that's good news that they're willing to extend those. The downside is that they're like any other business. They're not waiting for us to sign this agreement to put people to work. And another project was on the books and got going. And so they've actually started a different project right now to keep their people working. So what that's going to mean is that because of the delays with this grant and getting the state municipal agreement in place, is that our project is still going to be done this year, but it's going to be starting much later than I think we had anticipated. And I think the latest that we have is that they're looking to start in August, but still finish this year. And because we had to delay awarding the project because of the LRIP delays, it's likely that there might need to be a change order that we put in place to acknowledge that the original completion drop dead date might need to be extended by an amount kind of similar to what we're extending the bid acceptance date by. But that remains to be seen, but I would not be surprised if that's something that does happen. So, sort of in recap, the grant is great news, but the delays at the state are slowing the project down, and that's bad news. But I still think we're going to be able to get the project done this year, just a little bit later in the year. So, not hearing any concerns from our attorney or engineer, did anyone have a chance to review it, or was there any concerns about any of the language that you saw in the state municipal agreement?
Any concerns? Questions?
Alder Piper here. I'm a little confused in the sense of if they were willing to hold the same bid price past what they normally do, you know, and then, but then at the tail end, and we might have to have a change agreement or change order, which affects time or construction contract cost. So if they're willing to give us extend the bidding time, wouldn't they just how are they entitled to a change order at that time?
So I think it's because we're asking them to voluntarily honor bids that they would not have to honor. And if they didn't honor their bids, we would have to take a much higher price with the next lowest bidder. You know, I think they're giving us some flexibility in honoring their price even when they don't have to. And I think it would be incumbent on us then to honor them and say, we asked you to extend the bid acceptance date for our purposes by 30 days or whatever that amount is going to be. And so it's only reasonable that on the back end of that, because you couldn't start, we wouldn't let you, that it's not fair to hold you to something. And I think if we weren't willing to give that flexibility, they would be much more likely to walk away from the bids and say, we're not going to accept penalties for not completing a project that you wouldn't let us start when we had agreed to start by. So I think it's just a fairness thing is what I'm anticipating. And if we wanted to go a different route, it would likely cost us more.
Thank you.
Don't want
Mayor
to
Tom.
speak on behalf of Kyle either, but I think shifting the project back slightly, if there are different methods that need to be employed by the contractor, being that it's later in the year, that could result in a potential change order as well. I know that I was asking specific questions to Kyle and the city engineer about what they're doing for like restoration work, et cetera. And from my understanding, they already have what's called EMAT in the specs, which is a good thing. If it was like similar projects in years prior where they're going to try to seed and plant grass and establish it, that would be a potential change order to shift that product or make that change in the project. So I think what we're trying to express is having flexibility with the contractor to be able to complete the project, you know, have it completed correctly by the end of the year, that we need to probably provide a little bit of flexibility with them. And if they are going to try to squeeze this project into a shorter timeline than before, they may be pulling a larger crew into the area to get it done, et cetera. So I do know I was able to see the bid opening, and I'm very happy with the low bidder. We have a really good history with them of doing some local projects. There are other contractors that I would not want to go down that path with again. So I'm happy that the low bidder is someone that we've had a really successful relationship with and a good product from. So I think it's just maybe recognizing that we may need to be a little bit more flexible.
Does it possibly have any effect on, you had three bidders, now this one's lowest, now after they put a change order in, now this one might have become the lowest. Are there any issues with that?
I can't predict that, and I don't want to speak for the city engineer or anyone else either, and I do believe that Jason usually does a very good job at writing our agreements and the specs for the project, so we don't have change orders typically. So I think Jason's going to keep tabs on that very well for us, but I think we just need to understand what the shift in the timeline and the award of the grant, the SMA needs to be approved before we can even accept the bid. That there was just that one little obstacle in there that we didn't have any control over as far as how quickly the state could get it to us. So I'm not very concerned about it. I think that we have the right people in place that will end up with a good product by the end of the year. But I think just understanding we may need to be a little bit more flexible to make sure we get the project done to satisfaction and completion.
Thank you, Mayor Tom.
And typically I worry a lot, so
Any other questions, comments, concerns for council or for Kyle, or for the mayor or for Kyle?
the only thing I would ask, I guess, Kyle, if you feel like all of us, the pertinent staff has reviewed the SMA, if there's any comments or concerns that they bring forward, if we want to bring this forward to the next regular meeting, that they just include those notes and we can address them before acceptance. Excellent.
Okay, that sounds great, so have them look over it, include the notes, and bring it forth. Kyle, go ahead.
not on this issue, but on the format of the meeting. We were initially going to be moving from this into item 10 in closed session. And with our attorney not yet back, I think we may want to still convene into closed session, but handle 12 before 10.
Okay. Okay. Okay, with a recommendation from the city administrator, we're going to go ahead and move forward to number 12 on the agenda to convene to closed session per state statute 19.85 sub 1 sub e, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss potential developments in the city of Columbus. We will not be coming back on the air tonight. We do have one other closed session item after this. But thank you for joining us, and good night. Need a motion to move into closed session?
Alder Piper will make a motion to adjourn into closed session.
McCabe seconds.
Okay. Jude, could you take the roll? Thank you.
Here.
Aye.
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 Okay, we are now in closed session.